Nice. What's going on, man? How's Edmonton?
Edmonton is gloomy and raining today, so that's fun.
But isn't it? I actually, because Taylor's in Calgary, I heard it's like +10 in Calgary today or something.
I don't think it's +10 right now, but the whole week is like in the pluses. So
Yeah, this is
definitely
what the
can't complain.
podcast is. We just talk about weather in,
Yeah.
Yeah.
in
It's
different.
also just real life, just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
how's the weather in Toronto this week?
Oh man, don't get me started.
Just
It's
office talk. We just
yeah,
mimic being in an office.
I'll
That's
hang
all we
up and
know.
listen for your answer.
yeah. Yeah. How did the kids go down?
They didn't yet.
No. Well, sorry if this is a big, if we pulled you away.
No, the Jess can handle it. She's on her own.
You got important stuff to do.
I'm
Talk.
like, I'm on so many podcasts today. I'm
Yeah.
gonna be down here for like 8 hours.
You're just playing like mini sticks in the.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. How's
I
that?
got-
How's work been? Are you guys busy this time of year?
Yeah, it's been surprisingly good. It's nice because normally we don't book until like 2 weeks out max.
Yeah.
And this year, we're sort of like booked up till March, or sort of have stuff on the dock until April, which is nice. So
Damn.
it's like a little bit, yeah, it's nice.
That's awesome. Is it all in Edmonton, or do you have to go anywhere?
No, there's a few cool jobs. I'm DPing, like director of photography, for a movie in Stettler in February.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
So I'm doing 10 days in Stettler in February, which I don't know if I've ever been to
Where
Stettler.
is Stettler?
I
I've
don't
heard of it before, but
I think it's like 2 hours from Edmonton and 2 hours from Calgary. Taylor might know, but
Yeah, I think it's I'm not sure if I'm confusing it with Panoka, but I think it's not far from Panoka. It's
Panoka
just
is
in
right
that
by
general
Red Deer, I
direction. I think
think.
it's huh?
Panoka is right by Red Deer, I think. The only reason I know that's because we had
Panoka's
cousins.
closer. No, because they got Wolf Creek Golf Course there. That's how I know it.
Yeah, yeah,
hmm.
but it's like
45
it's on the
minutes.
way. That's on the way to Calgary, though.
Yeah, I think Stettler is off kind of
Oh, okay.
off
Anyway,
to the side of it.
so are you gonna like commute every day, or are you gonna like stay there?
No, they like we're up in a hotel for like 10 days in Stettler.
Wait, so what's the movie? Like, how did you?
It's so what I don't have the final script yet. It's called People and Stuff, I think is the working title.
Yeah,
And it's about an old lady basically who's selling off all her stuff. So
that's
yeah,
pretty cool.
it's like a self-funded, low like indie movie. So
That's
yeah,
sweet.
by a production house out of Canmore and Calgary. So
Nice. That's pretty cool.
yeah,
Sounds traumatic for an old lady to sell off all her stuff. That sounds like women's nightmare.
yeah, it's and they ran it as a play first, so they wrote it as a play, and then we're testing it out in Canmore, and then so they've adapted it. So I went down to see the play, and yeah, now doing the movie version.
Nice. So, are you going anywhere else other than Stettler?
Yeah, and then I'm doing a documentary on a guy who hasn't made music in like 10 years, who's doing music, but he bought a boat. He lives in Comox, and he bought a boat that can sail around the world on one tank of gas.
Oh,
But his idea is to essentially go on this boat for like a week to 10 days, and we're sailing up through Desolation Sound, like northern BC. And we're bringing a music producer on the boat. And so they're going to be writing all the songs and like doing all the demoing there, and I'm going to be capturing it all. And then a month later, we're flying to Paris for him to actually record the album.
like
So that's a pretty wild job.
wow, that's
So
awesome.
how big is this boat? You're just living on there with him?
Yeah, me and one other guy who I've never met are living on this boat for a week to 10 days. It's all weather dependent because like the tides and stuff get crazy up there. So it's totally weather dependent on how long we're actually on the boat, I guess. But
Damn, that's awesome.
yeah.
That's very cool.
Just on side quest after side quest here.
Basically, yeah. So that's my life.
How's Jess feel about this all? Your side quest.
Oh, Oh, she doesn't know.
You'll tell her, I'm off to work. That's funny.
Gotta work.
Yeah. That's cool though. At least it's interesting stuff.
Yeah.
How do you even meet these? Like, where do they reach out to you, or how do you meet them for like? Because documentaries and stuff are not in your like main like wheelhouse, is it?
Yeah, it's something I want to do more of for sure. Like we've definitely done a few. It's just usually the documentary stuff is like it takes so long or it's tied up in like I don't know, licensing and stuff, so you never actually share it. But we do a fair bit of it every year. It's just trying to get more into like the mainstream stuff that's actually getting shared and posted because it's the stuff I like to do the best, like real people's stories and trying to make it look as cool as possible.
Yeah.
And also like having real experiences is cool. There's a lot of stuff we do where we just sit in like a box all day, you know, like a studio and
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
to light it, and that's less exciting sometimes.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess like I wrote down a few questions. I know Taylor did too. Yeah, we just figured like we'll probably edit it so it's just like flowing questions. I don't know if Taylor probably has a better vision for it, but so
My vision is to do as little editing as possible.
yeah.
But no, I think like we're still figuring it out. So it's like I've been doing the editing so far, and I'm getting probably appreciation for what you do is just like how much behind the scenes goes in after a shoot. You're just like, wow, this is more work than the actual probably shoot itself. I'm sure you're can relate to that.
Yeah, I mean, you're on the right path by saying edit as little as possible. That'll keep you doing it.
That's the
We
number.
just call it being authentic, right?
Exactly.
We're gonna have to edit out a lot though with some of these questions.
Yeah, that's how.
Yeah.
Yeah, just cut the first half of all of my answers.
So Palestine. That's a big theme for the questions.
Yeah, this is a political podcast, so we're gonna.
Yeah. So how do you guys? I mean, like, how do you guys feel about vaccines? Let's just
hate them or love them. Vaccines go. Yeah.
That's all you need is sound bites. You
Yes.
just need little quick sound bites.
Autism is through the roof these days, and we need to talk about it. It's the elephant in the room. But yeah, I mean, I guess probably a good question would be like, I guess a little bit of background info. So obviously you started a photography business, and I know you went to photography school, and then that was kind of where it started. But I guess one thing we're kind of curious on is because, like, you know, the theme of this is we want to talk to people who are creating and putting stuff out there. And I'm sure you can relate that in the early days, it was probably very, you know, vague and rough and tough to take that first step. So just a little background on like when you started it, how you started it. I know you work with a business partner. How did sort of Cooper and O'Hara come to be?
Yeah. So I went to Nate for photo school in 2011, 2012, I think. So 2 years there. And then kind of the last semester, I started thinking about starting a business with someone as opposed to just doing it on my own. I just felt like it would be a lonely endeavor. And so Brian and I started talking, and a job fell in our laps. I guess even before that too, like I was traveling after high school for a year, and I was kind of deciding between business school and photo school, and I was like, so everything was just sort of this like, I'll just try that and see how long it lasts. So I got into business school and photo school, and I was like, well, I'll do the photo school, and then I can always just go back and do business school after if it was a complete waste of time.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then nearing the end of photo school, Brian and I decided to like think about doing it together, and a job kind of fell into our lap. It was like some industrial shoot up north or something, and I remember as we were driving to the shoot, we were in Brian's like old car from school that didn't even work, and it was icy and it was winter, and we drove to this shoot, and the client was right behind us, and Brian skidded off the highway and we slid into a telephone pole, but his car was already destroyed. So the client got out and like looked at his destroyed car, and they were like, "Oh my God." And we were like, "No, his car's been like this. Like this, we're totally fine." So that was the start of it. And then after that, that job went pretty good. Um, and they asked us like what our name was, and we just said our last names. We're like, we're Cooper and O'Hara.
Yeah.
And they wrote the check out to Cooper and O'Hara. And then we realized we couldn't cash that check until we made an actual company named Cooper and O'Hara.
That's funny.
And that's sort of how it started.
Yeah. I mean, it's the crash almost seems like a bad omen, but you guys obviously worked through it.
Yeah, no, it's haunted us to this day.
That's funny. And so did you guys oh, go ahead.
If you start like with the worst possible scenario,
That's
like,
true.
You can't be afraid of anything.
Yeah, that's true. And then did you guys, so it sounds like, so it was like a commercial shoot, but I understand you did weddings early on, but you don't do weddings anymore. Like, so what were your like clients when you started, and like, were you always trying to transition away, or like, did you have like a perfect clients, like work you wanted to do in mind, but what was kind of like how it started and then where you shifted to now?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like, I mean, even in Nate, like it wasn't like a business, but everyone shot weddings who went to photo school in Nate. Like I probably shot 30 weddings over the 2 years in photo school, like 15 a year, just
Yeah.
because it's like pays for school, and it's a good way to get practice, and nothing against it. It's like a totally great thing to do if you like shooting that stuff. I just knew I was going to get sick of love and weddings and all of that stuff. So I did my 2 years, and then our first job. So once we got out of school, we would maybe do like the odd wedding for a friend, but we decided right away that like we wanted to be commercial photographers.
Yeah.
So a lot of our early work was like industrial stuff, like going to Fort Mac and shooting for those companies, like oil companies, things like that. And also architecture was like a big one because it was easier to get in the door for that sort of thing. Um, People are more trusting for young people to like take architecture photos than on set with people.
Yeah.
So we probably did a year and a half or so of more of that sort of stuff. But right out of school, I did a project called Everything Edmonton, I called it. And I went around to local businesses, and I basically like shot portraits of owners and all this like and up and coming startups and all this stuff. And then back when there was Yellowhead Brewing, I put on like a gala night. So I got a bunch of local bands to play it. I put up all the like portraits of these small startup business owners. I had charities come, and it was like a big like charity event. So I feel like that kind of got me in the door more than anything else.
And so you just did that all yourself? Like that was just your own creation?
Yeah.
Damn, that's awesome.
It's crazy when you're young and ambitious and like I don't know, you're not afraid of anything. You're just like, I'll just do this.
Yeah. No, it is. I don't know. It doesn't really make sense that like as you get older and more experienced, you get like more scared. It's like the opposite of what I would think it would be. But
I think you almost get like less like you're more grounded almost in a way. Like I would be like, oh, no one wants to like give up their evening to come to my event in January of 2025, you know?
yeah.
But when you're 21 years old, you're like, everyone obviously wants to come to this event tonight.
I'm the coolest. Everyone wants to. Yeah, I was even thinking about that the other day because it was snowing here in Toronto. That like, there's the thought of like waiting in line to go to like a club or a bar when it's like cold and snowing. When you're just like 20, you're like, yeah, of course. And now it's like you would have to pay me so much money to do that.
Yeah, I know. It makes no sense. And I think with that like perspective, it comes this idea of like, well, if I don't want to do that, like no one else want to do that.
For sure.
But yeah, that's sort of how it started.
When you were starting, you mentioned business school, so I'm guessing you could have like you're like between going the traditional route and then trying something more creative. like why photography? Was it just something you were always interested in, or were you just kind of like, ah, this seems like something I could do, let's try it? Or was there like you always kind of like that's your ideal job and you had a fallback? Like what was the thought process there?
Yeah, I think I got a camera in like grade 10. And me and my buddy would just like go out and shoot train tracks and stuff, like as kids do, all the fun
Mm,
stuff.
that's
You
weird.
know, as all the cool kids do.
So high school was tough days for you. You want to talk about it? Who was the
You know,
bully?
like yeah, we thought we were pretty neat. And then I think what sold it was after high school, I traveled again for like the whole year basically. And during that year, I just like brought a camera everywhere, as I think a lot of people do. But I started getting into like different photographers and following along with like different people who were making a go out of it. It was kind of sort of the start of Instagram too. So like that was people were super accessible to like talk to. And I remember like I traveled to Vancouver to meet up with a guy who was seemed like he was doing good. And um, it just seemed like it was getting to a point where it was accessible to like actually make a career out of it. And mixed with having the year of being like, oh, I like taking photos and doing the creative side of stuff too. It just seemed like an obvious first step. I knew I wouldn't do business school and then be like, I should now do photo school. So I knew it had to be photo school and then business school.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. So when you're starting out, like now you've obviously been doing it for like 10 years. Like in those early days, did you have like unnecessary pain that you could look at now and be like, I would have done that totally differently, or like tried to, go down a different path early on, but like, I guess with the benefit of hindsight, like looking back those early days, what would you have done different?
Yeah, I mean, so the nice thing about our early days is I was still like serving for the first 2 years we had a business. And I was a master of not of living off of not much money, which
Nice.
was basically essential. So I think the one thing we had going for us is because we started the business so young, we were able to have like 3 to 4 years where, if it wasn't great, we could survive. We didn't have like families or kids or any expenses really. So that was the good part. If I was going back again, I don't know, the year, like once you've been doing it for like 10 years, the years just sort of start blending together. And I
Yeah.
think like the hustle you bring to like getting your first few clients in the door sort of like constantly dissipates as you go through time.
Yeah.
And if anything, it's sort of like realigning your goals every year, which I'm starting to get better at now. But there's probably like a middle chunk of time where you're just like, I'll take anything, I'll do whatever. And you kind of like lose track of that North Star a bit.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
What do you think like that initial inertia? So you mentioned like obviously like you were able to keep your expenses low, but I'm sure there were times when you're like, are we doing the right thing? Or is like, did you ever feel like, oh, you're going to give up? Or like, was there moments where you're like, this is time to go back to the real world and get an office job? Or did you never even cross your mind?
Oh yeah, no, like I would say 2 years in. So I was probably serving for 2 years. And then around that time where I was like, do I quit and like just go full steam ahead? I also started looking at business school again. I was like, I should just like go back to school and do that on the side of this business. Um, but then went through all the process of going back through business school, and I had actually taken a few of the like entry level courses in the photography program. And so I wanted credit for those because I didn't want to have to pay to then retake a course I'd already taken. And they wouldn't give it to me. And they were like, no, you just have to do everything. And it seemed like such a money grab that I got mad and didn't go to business school. And that was basically, yeah. And then I was just like, got a chip on my shoulder. And I was like, I'll just do photography.
So some IT guy or administrator really drove your story of success.
So yeah, they really,
Yeah, it's a story of
they're,
spite.
it's, yeah, it's a
It's
vengeful story.
yeah, it's is a vengeance, the Thomas O'Hara story.
Have you guys seen The Revenant?
That's funny. Well, one question I wanted to ask is I don't know how long you've had your like space. Yeah, like I don't know if you call it your office or your warehouse or whatever, but it's very cool. You got like a mini ramp in there. I think you have ping pong, if I'm remembering correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So when you guys set it up, I'm guessing you were probably like looking at spaces and you're like, this probably doesn't make business sense to have a mini ramp, but you're like, we're going to do it. Like, what was kind of the process of like having a cool space? Like, why was that important? Like, were you ever thinking about just doing like a boring office, or like, why is it so cool? I guess is my question.
That's a good question. When I was in photo school, you had to draw like your ideal studio. And I remember like everyone drew like very functional studios, and mine had like a slide in it and a climbing wall and all this stuff. Um, but then like starting out, like we worked out of coffee shops for a couple of years, and then we worked in a co-working space probably starting in like 2016, I would say 2015, yeah, 2016 probably. And we had like a tiny little like 200 square foot box that we worked out of.
Yeah.
And then like a year and a half later, we went to like a 400 or maybe a 300 square foot box. And like our box just kept growing in this co-working space.
Yeah.
So eventually we had like 600 or 700 square feet. And then COVID hit, and we had a pretty good like co-working office. But COVID hit, and like the office space kept getting shut down because there was like 50 companies, 25 companies in there. And so we were like, well, this isn't feasible
And
for
you were,
us.
yeah, and you were very anti-vaccine, if I recall, at that time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
as you
exactly.
can recall from
Yeah.
earlier in the
I remember
conversation.
your tweets about that. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So that's when my career really took off,
Yes.
actually.
Yeah.
It was like a bunch of like photos of me marketing, being like, get these kind of shots.
Yeah, exactly. I remember that.
Not those ones.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so the space kept getting closed down.
Yeah. I don't know why. I don't get it.
You infected everyone. I remember it was on the news, but yeah.
I was sick for months. Anyways, you can cut all this,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. So then how'd you find the
Um,
space you went to?
so then the landlord who owned the co-working space owned like this string of office space. And so he was like, we can get you in this space. We had a tenant just leave, and it was just like a big garage sort of space. And so from there, yeah, I just started like, I don't know. I've just always liked fun stuff being around. So
Yeah.
I probably could have just left it open and had a studio space, but I feel more creative and more inspired if there's actual stuff to do in a space and not just like work all the time. So
Yeah.
I was like, sure, let's build a mini ramp and learn how to skateboard. Let's put a let's pull out the stairs and just put a climbing wall up to the loft. It's just like, I don't know. I think it's less of a business decision and more of just what I like.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that in turn has like benefited, I think, our business as well. So it's like this weird thing. But I think if I was too intentional about it or thought too hard about it, it wouldn't be a positive.
Yeah.
Like you'd start trying to like sculpt stuff to that way of thinking.
Yeah. No.
So
I mean, that's as good a reason I can think of.
Did you skateboard as a kid?
no, like I mean, as much as any other kid did, like as a little kid, I remember trying to like ollie a curb and stuff, but I don't think I ever did it. So,
Can you
and
kick
then
flip
like,
now?
yeah, yeah, I learned how to kickflip, and then mostly just riding the mini ramp now. Though I try not to like spin the board anymore because that's just some old skateboarder once told me that as soon as you start flipping the board, your chance of injury goes up so much. So now I try and keep the board like on the wheels and just riding on ramps.
That's fair.
Well, that's a pretty good COVID because you picked up during COVID, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 2020.
I think me and Steven both picked up skateboarding around that time, and have not made the same amount of progress.
No. I don't think ollieing while moving is like, it doesn't make sense. Again,
It's
I don't know.
stupid.
Something's wrong with it.
Although, that being said, I haven't skateboarded in like probably 6 months, so
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if I still have it.
Well, it probably explains why you pick up like 360s on wake surfing and stuff so much.
Yeah.
You're so quick.
You're so cool.
Oh, stop it.
Yeah. Another question I want to ask, I mean, this isn't related to business, but I mean, I think we're interested in anyone who's like putting stuff out there, regardless. And you've put out music. So what was that kind of like? Was there a big mental block to like promote your own music, put it on Spotify? Was that like a tough thing, or did it feel kind of natural after doing the business? Like, what was that like when you were actually considering putting it out there?
Yeah, no, putting out music, I hated it. It was I don't know, like a business I can separate from it. It's become my livelihood. I mean, I still don't love social media. I'm not very good at it. I don't like promoting myself, but at least with the business, it's like I can separate myself from it a little bit.
Yeah.
The music thing, I've was something I've always done music. Um, and then so I played in bands until I was like 25 probably, and then just kind of stopped that cold turkey. Even before that, like I used to play, I forget, I was part of like a rising, like some sort of like music store, like rising artists when I was like 13, and they'd
Oh,
like get
damn.
us gigs in West Edmonton Mall and stuff. So I used to play a lot more, and then I think sort of near the end of COVID, I had these buddies who had a studio, um, and they were like, "Yeah, let's just record music." And I wanted to try and make music. Like normally nowadays, it's just like me and an acoustic guitar if I'm playing at all. But then I kind of wanted to meet up with these guys and learn a bit more about the technical aspects of like, adding in synths, making sounds, how they mix that sort of stuff. So I kind of wanted to just figure out that world. So I went in with more of like folky songs, and then I was like, let's just play around and see what we can make out of these. More with the intention of me just learning sort of their process and how they work creatively. Um, and then once we got to the end, they were like, "Well, you got to post it in some capacity, right?" And my thought was always just like, "No, absolutely not."
Yeah.
Like this, just like I get a lot of my fulfillment just from the creation aspect. It's sort of what I struggle with in my business too. Like I would rather just create cool stuff and not have to think about it as a business.
Yeah.
Um, and that's especially true with music. It's like I had so much fun just like staying up late in the studio with those guys and like being creative, that the thought of then like having to push it out and promote it and see, and then like as soon as it leaves your hands, it's like it's up to other people to judge it, it's like, which it didn't really matter to me if it's good or bad. It was more about just the creation process for that. But I think it's good to post too, you
Yeah.
know. It's
Yeah.
like it
No.
also finishes something. It's like it's way easier to do something and never share it than to just like commit yourself to actually sharing it.
Yeah. No, for sure. Like, I think I feel the same way. Like, in my head, at least, whenever I think about like promoting something on my own, it's like, oh, I don't want to be like that guy who's just like, some narcissist or something. But then you think about it, it's like, well, like if everyone had this attitude, then it's just like no one would do anything. And so, like, I don't know, it is like on people to have like the courage to actually just like post it, as much as it sucks. But I don't know, the world would be very dull if like everyone just like chalked it up to like, oh, I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah, totally. And I love looking at content too, right? Like whether it's YouTube
Oh
or
yeah.
wherever, it's like people who are willing to take that chance. It's like I'll support that all day. And so it's weird that it's a mental block the other way where you're like, no one wants to see this.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, because I think that's like a huge, I don't know, for myself, but I'm sure everyone when you're starting, it's just not only promoting yourself is uncomfortable, but I think it's often like really confusing about how to do it. Like, I'm just curious how that's changed for you over the years and like how you view it or what you've learned. Because it sounds like initially it was just sort of more word of mouth. and kind of going one to the next. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just kind of the
Mm-hmm.
impression I got. I'm just curious how you went about that and how that strategy's like changed for you as you've got more established, and how like obviously social media and technology's changed like how everyone communicates now. So
Yeah, I don't. That's the issue is I still feel like I'm not great at it. Like obviously we post, we try and post consistently is the key, but there's still tons of stuff differently that I would be doing from promotional standpoint. But we lucky because we got so much generated just from word of mouth and sort of like boots on the ground, picking up the phone. That sort of kept us rolling, and we sort of avoided that like Instagram blow up phase where that was how people got work. Um, so nowadays it's sort of just navigating um, sort of how tech's changing, like you said, and how we're going to utilize it for our own purposes. So I don't know if I have a great answer for how that's like changed or adapted because I feel like it's just constantly changing and adapting.
so you get most of your customers come to you then, or like currently?
Yeah, currently I feel like it's all just relationships. Like I'll do something, you post it, people see it. I'll form relationships with other people who know other people, and that's just sort of how it's taken off. I think I have like a lot of interest too, and a lot of um, I don't know. I'd like to think I'm easy to be around, but like,
Mm.
so like,
Uh,
yeah,
You're just
yeah,
really talented. You're a great photographer. it's, it's like in spite of, like, it's really incredible what you've accomplished.
yeah, everyone has their thing.
Yeah. Your business partner is a
Um,
great guy, Brian.
yeah,
He does a lot of great work.
as long as I stay really far behind the scenes, it's
Yeah.
okay. But even like, so I'm willing to like go on a boat for 7 to 10 days, and I've done enough life stuff that I can navigate that experience while still like capturing it. So I think that more than anything has helped me, like just being adaptable in different situations and also being willing to put myself in those situations is a big part of why I keep getting work, I think.
Yeah.
So when you started, you met like were you just cold calling people or like knocking on doors? Like what would the pitch be? Like how would you convince someone to be like, hey, try us out?
I don't know. Yeah, I printed off a book of all our photos that we had taken up to that point. So a lot of the project from that Everything Edmonton project, and I put all my money into like a really nice bound book, and I just started going to like every single agency, meeting with them, talking about our stuff, traveling around. Like yeah, it was literally just door to door cold calls. Um, Trying to get my foot in the door. And then from there, it probably took like 6 months for the first person to sort of bite and be like, okay, you're cool enough. We'll give you a shot at something. And then it sort of just like slowly sort of snowballed from there.
That's awesome. I didn't realize that it was like, I don't know, there was that much to get that initial inertia. There was like that much, I don't know, I guess just like pushing and cold calling and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was probably 6 months after that Everything Edmonton project of just like meetings and personal projects and just trying to like share work with people and calling them and trying to get someone to trust you enough to give you work.
Yeah.
So do you think it was your portfolio or more just that personal connection? Because like I think that's one thing that a lot of creatives, it's like they get stuck on their portfolio or perfecting a portfolio. But I've always kind of wondered if maybe it's like the other side is actually in many ways more critical and the portfolio is just there to kind of like, here's why you can trust me. There's something here, but it's more like that personal connection. I'm curious if you'd agree or disagree.
Oh yeah, I agree 100%. I think um, the work has to be obviously to a certain standard, but it's all about human connection. And you think about it even with yourself, right? Like, do you want to hang out with a weirdo person who is really good at what they do, but like they're
I,
super weird and you have
I
to
want
hang
to
out
hang
with
out
them
with
for
the
10
guys
hours?
who's taking pictures of train tracks. That's like my crew.
Yes. Yeah, you and my one other buddy, and that's it. That's all we'd have.
Yeah.
Brains are really big in the autism community. That's like a huge.
That's a huge
Is it?
market. That's primarily your clientele, right? Um,
It's funny. Girls never wanted to
yeah.
come hang out and do that.
um, I guess one question I have. So you have twins under the age of 1, and so I
Yes.
imagine that's very busy. And then you also run a business, and you're going on all these trips and stuff. So I guess my question is like, what's sex like?
I've never heard of it.
It's all IVF.
It was yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, ours is mostly machine based.
I mean, that's the future. I mean, I think when you talked about the train tracks, it was like I knew inside that that's probably how it. But
Yeah, have you guys seen Meta goggles?
man, technology is crazy. But yes, you do have young twins, so I imagine that is like, has that changed like the projects you take on?
Yeah, I would say I'm trying to be more selective for sure
Yeah.
about what I take on. The
Why are
issue
you
is that
winking?
like
Yeah.
who's listening to this?
But yeah, so does it like limit, I guess, like kind of like, I don't know. Do you think it makes it tougher? The business side, I would say. I imagine life's a lot tougher, but like running the business and trying to get inertia and stuff.
I don't know. It's tougher and it's easier at the same time. Like life gets really simple when you have twins.
Yeah.
It's it's like your goal is to make them happy and to have a good life for them. But I
Yeah.
think a part of that is to show them what that looks like for you. Like there's so many people who just hate their life and sure they're home every night from
Yeah.
4 p.m. on, but they're miserable and they're unhappy. It's like usually when I'm home, I've had a somewhat fulfilling experience or something, and then it's like I can put all that energy into the twins. So um I think it's just trying to be more selective and not taking stuff that's soul sucking
Yeah.
when I can. And I because I've been doing this long enough, I've been able to like afford that luxury of, I can say no to some of the soul sucking stuff that
Yeah.
would make me miserable, which is a part of it. Like if you need to make a living, that's definitely a part of it for a long time. But oops, I'm setting off my phone alarm.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, now it's like I have the luxury of saying no to some of that stuff. And ideally, yeah, some of the most creative stuff is going away like for 10 days or a week at a time. But it also fills my cup. And ideally, it's showing them to like, you can love what you do.
Damn.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people are they use like, oh, I have kids and now I can't do the creative stuff or the motivating stuff. So you're saying it's like more motivating in a way?
I would think so. Yeah. Like more motivating to me, you mean?
Yeah, well, I guess what I'm getting at is like you'll talk to people who want to start things
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll be like, oh, I just had kids or whatever, and then that becomes like an excuse not to take a risk or not to do something. I'm curious. Obviously, there's a lot more energy that goes into that, but just like, do you think it like helps you motivate you more, and like that's actually a net benefit, or is the reality that it is harder, but you're just willing to make that trade off?
Yeah, I think it's harder, but I also it's different before you have kids. Like time's just different, right? So it's like it's hard before you have kids. It's hard after you have kids. You just as soon as you have kids, you learn how to manage your time better or differently, I think. Whereas like pre-kids, you have more time, but I'm less productive the more time I have. Like they
Yeah.
always say, like if you need something done, give it to a busy person because it's like when I'm not busy is when I'm the least productive because it's easy to just kill time. So I think actually like having a finite amount of time in my day where it's like, okay, I need to achieve all this in this set amount of time because I have to be home at this time actually makes me more productive.
Yeah.
But I think like starting out, like if you were starting something from scratch and you're like, hey, I have a family to support, it would be hard because all of a sudden you have to make decisions if you're trying to make it like your financial freedom goal, of like starting your own thing, I think like for any small business, it's just like how long can you stay in the game for?
Yeah.
And and so it's like if you're willing to do the 100 episodes of a podcast, if you're willing to do 100 YouTube videos, it's like you'll probably start seeing some trade-off from that. It's just like you're gonna have to put in a lot of work without any payoff for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, that's who knew we're getting such sage parenting advice from this podcast. This is, yeah.
Yeah, I have 10 months experience.
So one little segment we thought would be fun is we ask our prior guests questions for the next guest. So as you know, our prior guest was the best man at your wedding, Nick. So he gave you some options, though. He was kind.
Okay.
How would you solve Israel and Palestine? So that was the first question. AI, is it good? Tell me the difference.
Wait. You skimmed over that first one. I'd like to.
You got a lot of thoughts. We'll just tell me the difference between sex and gender. I
don't understand.
Yeah. How do you balance a career and being a mother? When is it right to pull the plug? And finally, if you could steal a smooch from a special someone in Hollywood, who would that be? So Nick really wanted to, give you some options.
The funny thing is you probably know the answers to all of these. But what's the pulling the plug? Is that a sex-related thing too?
They're actually all. And then I think what we're thinking with this podcast is next episode will be Nick, and you can give questions to him, and then you'll be Thomas, and then it's like we just go back and forth.
It's just back and forth forever.
It's just the Nick and Thomas podcast.
Clearly, I ended up with twins. I don't know how to pull the plug.
So that's the question that you chose to answer. It's never right to pull the plug. So that's
pull the plug is to admit defeat.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better.
That actually applies to all the questions.
Israel and Palestine don't never admit defeat. That's what that's what you're telling them.
Never admit defeat. Don't pull the plug.
Yeah.
Emily Blunt.
Ooh, Emily Blunt. That's that might be the most controversial answer of them all. Because in Sicario, I don't think she would be top of my list based on Sicario. But then you watch Edge of Tomorrow, and it's like, that's not a bad answer. So
that the Edge of Tomorrow push up or like upward facing dog might be the sexiest scene in all of cinema.
Wow. Now that's we wanted sound bites to promote. The downward dog is the sexiest scene.
Upward dog
is the sexiest scene in the history of cinema. Yeah, I mean that's stand
by that answer.
Yeah. Well, Taylor,
my question for Nick is, what is the sexiest scene in cinema history?
Yeah. I mean, he's going to go a lot of directions with that. But I don't know. I didn't have any. Taylor, I'm not sure if you had anything else.
I don't know. That's a tough act to follow. I am curious, though, on more like your technical gear setup and like obviously AI is big and it's going to affect creative industries. I'm just curious. Are you using it? Are you avoiding it? Like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, AI wise, I've been diving in mostly for like assistant based stuff, like writing emails, kind of the stuff. Oh no. 15-minute warning.
Yeah, we're on the free version because we're still bootstrapping this.
Yeah.
They want $15. They want $15 a month, so
guess I won't tell you about Israel Palestine. Yeah. It's gonna be a lot longer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So AI wise, yeah, I'm using it mostly like most other people, like assistants for emails, call sheets, sort of just like day-to-day stuff that I need to get done. I have tried it for like editing and calling images but it's just not there yet really for what I need it to do. But I think it will get there, and I'm open to it.
Yeah. So you're seeing it not like, do you find clients like, because I do find there's like kind of a divide between like some people like really want to avoid it and other people are open to it. I'm just curious. I'm guessing you're not using too much generative stuff, so it's probably not affecting you right now. But um, do clients ask you for things, or you're just kind of not there yet?
Yeah, no, people don't really ask for it yet. Like, I mean, and we do use it in like Photoshop will like to remove stuff is amazing now. So it's actually just sped up our workflow. But I think for me, like when we started, it was like through all of the 10 years we've been doing this, there's always something new that's like threatening to ruin your job. Even like all the way back to the film wasn't that long ago. Like when I started Nate, we still shot film for the first semester and then switched to digital. And it was still a time where people were like, I don't know about this digital world. And so I feel like, and then there was like, then in the 10 years we've been in business, there was like a recession where the world was going to end. There was a pandemic where the world was going to end. And now AI, the people who don't want to at least like explore it and see how it could be beneficial, I feel like are just going to get left behind. Like it's gonna come whether you want it to or not. So you might as well just hop on and try it out.
So what was with the film? What was the people just didn't like how it looked and they thought it like cheapened the process, or like what was the pushback on that?
Well, I think like with any industry, it's people have been doing it one way for so long that this new thing comes into play that they don't understand fully, and it's scary, and so people push back on it. Um, and so there was this idea. I mean, film is beautiful. Like lots of movies are still shot on it. It still has a certain quality to it, but it's less accessible. It's more expensive. It's harder to learn your craft on it. So digital's basically caught up in every way, shape, and form. So it's just taken time.
So when you were starting, like I know one thing that happens is like gear autism. People get like really like every field is just like obsessively researching like technology and the gear and stuff. I think that's like can be a bit of a trap, but that it can also pay off in certain ways. I'm just when you started, like have you like were you using expensive gear or were you just kind of like getting by with like how cutting edge at the time was this gear you were using?
Well, when I started, the nice thing was like, so we started in photos, and the most expensive photo camera was the Canon 5D Mark II. I think it just come out, which was like this revolutionary camera that you could shoot photo and video on. And it was sort of the first one of its kind, and so everyone was shooting on that, and that was probably $3,000, $2,500. So it was like it's expensive, but if you're trying to make a living off of something, like that's not that much to save up for and spend on gear. Um, since then, like once you get into the world of video productions and stuff like that, yeah, gear gets crazy. Like we could be buying something every day and still feel like we don't have enough gear, so you really have to like pull the reins on stuff.
Yeah. So your business partner, does he also shoot photos or is he handling more the business side? Like what, how do you, because obviously I can imagine navigating like a business partnership's a little bit tricky
Oh, for
in splitting that and that work.
Yeah, for sure. So he does he stayed in the photo realm more so than me, so I handle more of the video production and then I'll do the photo stuff too, and then he'll I mean, we obviously split a lot of just like the business management stuff, but he'll take on that if I'm busy with video production and stuff. But it definitely took a few years to sort of like navigate which roles we fit into and we just work different because we're different people. So it's taken time to figure out like, okay, this is what you're good at, this is your skill set, this is my skill set. How do we lift each other up and make it viable to be in a business together? So that takes time, like anything.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's, because I think that's like one thing people are always say business partners is like the either the best thing or the worst thing for the business. So I can,
Yeah.
you guys are just friends though? Like how, were you concerned at all when you were starting off that it's like, like the legal side wasn't, from the sounds of it, thought through before you even got a shoot?
No, totally. Like we've lucked out that we've been able to stay in business together for this long. I think the benefit is like we were friends before, like friends enough to obviously want to do this, but it wasn't like we were best friends hanging out every weekend, you know? And so that's, I think, sort of a sweet spot is we're friends where if we're away on a trip for 2 weeks, we can have a lot of fun and hang out, but we also live separate lives, and he has like his own family and separate and other things going on, and I have my own group of friends and other things going on. And so I think that's sort of like the key is we have other outlets beside the business. So
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the last thing, and I don't think this is really a question, but I do remember when I feel like when we became friends, we'd met once because you did a shoot for Preacher, and then I remember I think it was like a year later or so, and we'd only met that one time. I remember I emailed you and Brian about coming out to our house to shoot because my brother was about to do chemo, and then you just came out and did it for free on like a day's notice. So that was a certified good guy move. So. So not only are you a skilled photographer, it's a certified good guy.
did I not bill you for that? It must have got lost in the mail.
There's a lot of interest on it. But yes, I know my family is still very appreciative of that. But I didn't have any other questions. I don't know if Taylor, there's anything else you want to add.
No, I'm good. I guess we should let him
Yeah.
promo his business.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so you guys focus on photography, videography, like what else? Like, or
That's it.
Yeah.
Nice guys.
Nice guys, good
We try to
guys.
promote that.
Yeah. Well,
Great personalities.
yeah. Super handsome, everything. Great baseball player, actually. Wiffle ball player. Well, one day you were the.
I had my day.
You had your day. Nice home run. But yes, really appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. What's your future looking like for this? Like, what are you guys doing?
That's a very good question. We are doing the trying things and putting it out phase is where we're at right now. So, seeing where it takes us, just trying to be consistent, I guess, stick with it.
Yeah, and I think like I can't remember how much I texted you, but kind of the hope was to, both Taylor and I just kind of work corporate jobs, and we kind of want to get more involved with like creators and entrepreneurs and things like that. And it is kind of tough to like meet people, I guess, in that space and things like that. So kind of the hope is to just like kind of continue to talk with people who are kind of like in the area we want to be. And then I think our hope is as well is to like kind of do episodes and like document, I guess like our process as well as we're kind of like learning it too. So just kind of like trying to get in that world a little bit and meet some interesting people and, hopefully be able to provide some promo and, make it work for both parties.
Did Steve present us as we actually had listeners?
Yeah.
Is that how he got you on?
Yeah, he promised me that at least, what did you say, 100,000 people hear it?
Well, I mean, with that Emily Blunt's soundbite, I mean, 100,000 might be low. Yeah.
I just realized too, like halfway through, I was like, man, this looks like I've been kidnapped, like where I am right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we are blurring the screens is what we have done, but I mean, maybe for yours, it's a little more interesting if we show this.
I feel like it feels very nondescript, empty warehouse.
It's cool. But
like a newspaper.
Yeah, sweet man. We'll really appreciate it. We'll let you get back to your Saturday, but I'm sure we'll chat soon.